There we are. One participant, that's me. Oh no. Now maybe we could do it like this. Notes. Yes.
Found this lying around and I thought that you might want it.
Yeah, hey Tanya, can you ask Mom if I can borrow her iPad? I don't need a computer, just her iPad. I got to check and see if her uploads were successful. Thank you. Let's take a look here. There's something weird about this. Okay, no rush. I hope I didn't screw this up. Hello, Tina. Hello, Ben.
Hey, Larry.
So I was afraid I kind of messed things up because he sent out a whole bunch of new invitations. So glad you guys joined because I was feeling a little insecure there for a moment.
You'll get over that.
Yes. Yeah. True. Tell me, Ben, do you have a corner office there, or is it overlooking the airport or the ocean?
This is my off Friday, so I'm in my downstairs dungeon office with a view of the backyard. But I'm actually walking down to see the ocean, and as soon as this meeting's over.
Nice.
I think Paul Moore, hopefully Paul Moore is on his way, and we're going to go grab some lunch.
Oh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It does. Well, there's one of the Duns.
They're just closing out the facilitation class. We had a challenging exercise at the end that is being discussed a little still, but we'll see him shortly.
All right. Were you going to run the Lean Coffee board?
I can certainly try. I'm pulling it up now.
As we speak.
That's right. So we've got, oh, this may not be updated. Do we have suggestions for today's discussion? Because the last one I have was when Alejandro spoke on JIRA reporting, so that might be quite late.
So we could probably just jump into a Lean Coffee rather than have anybody with a specific thing.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question then.
Go ahead.
Just came across this week. So we had a ticket that was worked on, heavily worked on, and did not get finished. Probably the scope was just off on, how we sized it was wrong. And so we moved it to the next sprint. But a couple of people involved on the team decided that they were going to say, okay, well, we do the 135, blah, blah, blah. And it was an 8. And when they moved it forward, he said, well, how long do you think it'll take you to get finished? And he said 5. They changed the ticket to 5. So I think that's wrong. They said that that's what scrum.org says to do. And I said, no, you probably need to increase it because you scope too small. What say you guys?
Boy, that's never, ever, ever come up, huh?
I was just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
What I
just
heard was
so that
when
they-
it's going to be done, associated with a story point. Those are anti-patterns right there. Story points have nothing to do with time. It's a very loose aggregate of unknowns, quantifying the unquantifiable. So that's what I picked up on your initial topic there, was using that to help predict some kind of a release or completion. Did I hear that right?
Well, I don't know. Their idea was because 8 points worth was done the last time, but 5 points worth will be done the next time. I think we use JIRA. I think a JIRA card has a single value. It is completely irrelevant when it gets finished, when we are saying how big the work is. I think. I mean, isn't the whole point of saying this should have been and Scott, the scale we use is like 135, blah, 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 right, to size. It was sized an 8. It didn't get done. It's going to take 5 more, whatever they came up with, some number, to be able to finish it. And now they're wanting to call it a 5 instead of a 13, like I think, because it's the size of the work. It's irrelevant when it gets done. It's the size of the work. Am I wrong? I was told I was wrong, and that scrum.org says that when you move work forward, you can resize it. But I said, yes, but you're wanting to resize it up if it was worked on, not down, and then it was sized down.
So here's team, that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the idea, I almost said the point. See what I did there? The idea of velocity of story points is to help you plan going forward. I mean, that's how it should be used. How you decide what it is a religious argument, but it's to help you figure out what you can get done going forward. And what you do normally is look at not the last sprint, but an average of the last 2 or 3 sprints of how much work did we get done, and that's a good measure, a good starting point for what we can get done going forward. Having said that, what that means is that you should carry what I coach is carry that story forward, keep the points the same as what you did before, finish the story. You got no points towards your velocity in this sprint you started it in, but you're going to get them kind of for free.
Yeah.
because you're getting them done with less effort. That's point one. Point two is if the story was bigger than you pointed, rather than changing it, learn from it. Use that in
Yes.
your retro and get better, but don't change it, because then you lose the history of, gosh, we always underpoint, but you never see that because everything looks like it was the right size.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that's what I coach. I don't know what anyone else. I know some of the others of you here have run into the same thing.
I say the same thing when I'm confronted with it, and it's like Ben said, it's classic. It's a very typical problem. But Jeff Sutherland's really strong on this, and he agrees he agrees with Ben. So Ben, you're in good company.
Yeah.
It's
And
like, go ahead.
I would just add the fact that you spend a good amount of time on it in the current sprint, but you're going to carry it over and you're not going to get any credit for you, highlights the fact that you can't use the velocity of one sprint to determine anything. You've got to average things across multiple. And if the goal of a story is a piece of work that can be completed within a sprint, then unless it was just a goof on our part, like, oh, we didn't realize how much more was in here until we started to unpack it, which what I coach then is perhaps we need to spend a little bit more rigor in our planning process before we start a sprint, and where I like the idea still of committing to a sprint backlog because it encourages us to be intentional and cautious. But we might need to break things down better. We might need a bit more refinement so that we can fit things in. So, all right.
Yeah, we definitely have refinement issues. We have refinement issues, planning issues. Who has actually got any say in the team and who has none? There's no safety in the team. We got all kinds of problems. And as a matter of fact, Steve, I started to reach out to you this week and say, hey, we need to talk. And I don't know, I know that you're a great resource for me, for sure.
Yeah, feel free to reach out. I have some time even this afternoon. We're going through the Scrum 101 from Agile for Humans. And we're doing that with our team, watching a 5-minute video and then talking about it, and then watching the next 5-minute video and talking about it. And that'd help address some of the things that you're going through, because it talks about, because it's like prep work based strictly off of scrum.org.
So
Steve, what was the name of that again, Steve? I wanted to make sure.
It's Scrum 101, and it's Agile for Humans, those guys that do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's 20 videos and they're like 5 to 7 minutes long. And the first meeting we had, we got through like 3 or 4 videos. And then last week we did product manager, product owner responsibilities. This week was Scrum Master responsibilities. And then next week will be development team. But they've been fantastic and great talking points.
And you're doing that within your team, or are you doing it through?
No, it's just our team. And if you want, I can add you to the invite. Cassie and Denise have been attending when they're available, just to kind of see how it's working and how they might be able to take that back to their teams.
Yes, I'm not scrumming the team. I'm testing for it, but I'm going to say we're new into Scrum, but and it looks like we're new because we're on sprint 4, but we're really on sprint 13 because they decided in January they'd start the count over for some reason that nobody understands. It's just a lot of crazy. And nobody talks about velocity because everybody knows that we're not really having any idea what our velocity is right now. So it's interesting.
So it's important. I mean, it's great. It's good that the topic surfaced. I think it's important for everybody to have a shared understanding of why you're doing the different things, why you're using the different processes, and things like velocity are used and misused. And if you agree with me, my approach is that it's used mostly for looking forward and predicting. Then that sets you down a path that I think you can use it more appropriately. I've started focusing more on the predictability matrix, the say do. What did you say you were going to do in this sprint? How much did you finish? And I use that as not a metric to judge the team, but as a start to the conversation. In other words, if you're struggling, if you can't make sprint plans where you can get 75, 80% of it done, sprint over sprint, now that's a starting point for a conversation. Why do we think that is? And there's a lot of different reasons why that may be. And each of those reasons points to a different thing that might get it better.
Yes.
Like in your case, just a couple examples. It looks like we only got 3 of the 8 stories done, but 3 of the others are almost done. So it's really not that bad. So my comment to that would be, well, then you should do a better job in your stand-ups to see what's close to being done and try to push them over the line. Or, yeah, you know what? It seems like time after time we get into the story and there's more to it than we thought. So my opinion on that would be, well, then spend better time in your refinement. So
Yes.
different reasons for not being predictable point to different things you can do.
Yeah. The idea of limiting WIP comes up when you say, well, we had 3 that were almost done. Perhaps you shouldn't have 3 that were in progress at the same time.
Two.
We did something simple. I was doing some coaching for project managers. So it was really just around their tasks so that they could better understand Scrum and how the IT teams were implementing it. So one of ours is they kept having stories where they needed to have a meeting to come out with some decisions, and it was always rolling over. And so we talked about in the retrospective, well, maybe that needs to be 2 stories. One is scheduling the meeting because everybody's busy and it's always a good 2-3 weeks out before you can meet with them anyway. And then you have the meeting and come back with the decisions. And so it's just that Greg was a good exercise with them on something really simple to kind of realize, how do you break some things down so that you have something that's deliverable at the end of each cycle?
When we're talking about metrics, I think it's very important to ask, from what I'm learning, right, as I'm continuing to read and learn and all of that, is, why are you measuring something? What's the point
Yes.
behind it? And you hear velocity, and management and client stakeholders and all that, they equate velocity to some kind of throughput productivity measurement. We're not building widgets here, right? We're dealing with wicked problems and delivering value in chunks, hopefully. So that almost, if velocity is an issue and then you're nitpicking about points and how many points were done, there's a bigger problem. It's systemic and organization and culture and a working agreement between the Scrum team and the people who are signing the checks.
Yes.
I had one team that they had to get so many points in per sprint to make the average. And I'm like, that's not the way to go.
Yeah,
They're
that
No,
sounds
just
terrible.
controlled by metrics. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it's like,
What I've told the companies I've worked for, if
Got to
you
get your
use
10
the
points
metrics-
in.
If you use the metrics as a stick, you've hired very smart people who are solving very, very hard problems.
Yeah.
Gaining the metrics is going to be so
Uh-huh.
simple to them, they won't even notice it. And then they'll go back to doing the hard problems. So
yeah. And I
Yeah.
teams that would build stories that weren't actually about building valuable working software
Yeah.
would be one way to do that. Well, none of the stuff that we have left is small enough to fit, but we need another 6 points. Why don't we do a research spike to research that topic there? Why don't you do one for that? We'll get our points in. We'll keep our velocity current. It's like, okay, we just incented the team to waste some of their time in a planned fashion.
Yes.
Yeah. And really our bottom line isn't velocity so much, because there's no way they can have any idea of what our velocity is right now based on how we're doing things. I've been playing with the idea of the working agreement too, because we kind of need one, because we are kind of Scrum in name only at this point, because the Scrum team itself really has no say. I am the one that's speaking up and pushing back, because I think they're kind of afraid, and I'm old and figure if I have to lose my job, I'll be okay. Because I'm kind of close to retirement. And so they're scared. They're young and they're scared to speak up. And whenever they do, sometimes it's kind of weird. So, I try to talk to as much people. And then the one who causes all the problems, I'll just come off of mute and just this particular lady was asking, I'm QE, right? So she's asking and directing toward my teammate. She wanted proof of test on everything we did to make sure we were actually using correct information and it was good, valuable testing. So I come off of mute. And I said, so it sounds to me like you're questioning the integrity and the quality of the work we're doing, because that's me, right? Y'all can tell I don't just hold back. And I just said, oh, we'll do that for you. We'll double our timeline. Everything we do, if we say 3 points, it's going to be 6. So we'll do that, but we'll back up your timeline for you. Because I was just like, I'll play that game, you know. I got no problem saying I'll slow you a little roll if you're going to say that the work we're doing is not good, because it was very much the insinuation. And then I missed the meeting of when she actually accused us of being the bottleneck, when consistently the big work that has to go out that sprint gets handed to us on the afternoon before the last day of the sprint. We can't do that. And it's changed. It has, the documentation that we have that we go off of to prep inevitably is wrong. So when I say we got problems, I'm saying we got problems.
Yeah.
And I don't know where to even start to fix them. So
So this is interesting. We started with story points and we now have a redwood of problems.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest,
we
Bob,
do.
I'll let you speak, but I'm going to suggest that maybe we're not physically using a board, but we kind of use that lean coffee concept and see if we want to be talking about any of the 5 topics we've been talking about, or see if someone else has something to throw out. Maybe somebody would suggest one of the things you brought up, Tina, as going forward. But why don't you give us your thought, Bob?
Yeah, well, and yeah, Tina, and Steve, it sounds like there's a lot of stuff here. Probably should have a conversation apart from this, of this group session. And then Joyce and Dino just came over from our facilitation class. So Scott and I are building out and co-leading a beta version of the Scrum Alliance's certification class. And I was just going to point out that this was not an orchestrated thing, because you guys are exactly modeling the exercise that we're building, where there's strife between the development and the test organizations, and leadership is these expectations. So this is just, it shows the reality of the exercise that we're working through right now, in terms of figuring out how to restore psychological safety, establishing a plan for moving us in the right direction, and resetting leadership expectations, and the potential consequences, the risks of what's happening currently in terms of how they could affect our organization. So that's cool. So Ben, I defer to you on guiding us through. I think your suggestion's a good one.
Wow, cool. I like it. You can say that again and again. So I think Tina brought up a bunch of sections. I'm suggesting we don't go through the operations of trying to open a board and playing with that. Does someone have maybe want to pull the thread on one of the things that Tina and Steve were talking about, or is there something else that's on your mind? And maybe
Can I
we
ask
get
a question, Ben?
Sure.
Is this something like we should be looking at? Maybe these are symptoms of a bigger problem or a challenge. Maybe you look at from a systems thinking perspective. These are the smaller parts that's leading to a bigger part. Because I'm thinking there's yeah, I'm seeing little things here, little things. These are related to something bigger. I think it's a structural problem, or maybe something like that. I don't know. I'll shut up and let the team talk. But I think there's, from a system thinking perspective, how would you deal with this? These conversations.
Yeah, Richard, I see you were chiming in kind of on that. Did you have something to add to what Kim just said?
Yeah, I was just gonna say root cause. I agree with them 100%. They're all very, so what's it up? I mean, I guess, and it always comes up to organization and culture, right? That's what I learned recently with Scott on the Cal workshops and classes, is if organization and culture isn't bought into it, then everything else is a kind of a wasted effort, right? If you don't have that commitment at the top. So I guess, Tina, do you feel that you have cultural and leadership buy-in for this transformative initiative?
Well, yes and no, but I think the problem is within the team itself, because the when I joined that particular team, the guy and I that came into the team both said, "Hey, let's go Scrum." No, 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 no. And I said, "You'll either go now the way you want to, or you'll go later the way you're told." Well, here we are. And right now, basically, the it's a weird product owner kind of role that the person has, runs the show. does the backlog, tells us it's ready. Inevitably, there are changes every time. We're not able to push back very well on it because we're talked down to like, yes, that is the stuff you needed, even though, we come back and then there's just little issues like that. But that's we have to work on that. There's no empowerment in the team whatsoever. And the fact that when we get into sprint planning, instead of saying, we'll just use easy numbers. All right, your velocity was 10 the last time. Let's pull in 10 points and people grab work as they have time. Oh, no. It's, hey, so-and-so, can you take this one? So people walk in with assignments. Now, for me, in the purest sense of a Scrum team, here's the work we want done. We empower the developer or the actual software engineers or whatever to pull the work and do it and then push it through the system. But it is, we're assigned work. They want everybody's name on it. They want to know because they don't trust that we'll pick it up. And so I think probably if I looked at the total root
Oh
cause,
my God.
there is a trust issue.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm just going, why? Why is it this way? And then I speak up, and then I'm getting instant messages from developers going, preach it and stuff like that, because there's just a very unique new team, but we should have grown, made some growth up to this point, and we haven't. And I think it's the stagnation issue based on my view, and I know it's only my opinion, is that our product owner's basically a micromanaging bully, because everything is just what do just constant in every meeting. Just, and if we speak back, she will talk down to us, and I'm thinking, girl, I'll have nothing to lose at this point. I'm gonna just take up for the team because they're scared to speak up. So yeah, we just got problems. And I think the company as a whole is on board with what we're doing, but I don't think that people get that it's just this team. And I don't know if they feel like there's anywhere they can go, because I would like to solve it within the team, but there's not enough other people that can go along with it, and the developers are scared.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just, you've got to be ecstatic that what you just were hearing in the class is not theoretical and academic.
Not just a real world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we as Rocket 9 have seen several of you guys in the cow classes and other things, so we know that there's definitely an investment by the organization in working in an agile fashion. So it feels like you guys need to get this up to a level of somebody that would be a champion, and you probably need somebody at least outside of within the organization, but outside of the
Yes.
product owner and team, maybe somebody outside of the organization that would be respected as an external expert or something. It depends. If you've got the structure in place now where you've got those in-house, then maybe it's the credibility of a really successful team, and they have a coach, scrum master, or someone who could facilitate stuff. But yeah, you guys need to pull the cry for help string. And take this outside, because it's also, I mean, I hear it in your voice and in your choice of words, Tina. It's also forming what could turn into bitterness within individuals in the team beyond fear, right? It could go to the next level. And then what happens? Well, if the economy's any good at all, team starts to shrink, and the most employable people, which are usually among your best contributors, are the ones that leave first. So
Exactly.
I've been recently, going through the Scrum 101 series and reading back through the Scrum guide and all that other stuff, that whole 3 pillars, and then it's all, dangling off of that trust piece. And so have that trust and that confidence within team members, and be able to work through those things. None of that's going to function properly.
And the clarity of the roles and the focal point of the roles. So that's kind of an important thing. And then there ought to be, if you guys are doing this across many teams, and some teams are succeeding, there ought to be something common, in terms of, as an organization, these are the truths that we hold to be self-evident in terms of how we want to work.
Yeah.
You also almost should have an Agile constitution, you know, that each of the states, if you will adhere to.
Yeah,
Well,
and
I think
Steve and I work together, and I actually was thinking earlier this week, or like yesterday or today or something. I can't even remember because this week's been crazy. Thinking I'm gonna call Steve. I gotta call Steve because I know that he's good and he can help me try to figure out how to help the team to feel like they can speak up, because some will, like me. There's me, and then others just will not say anything. But and I remember I was talking to our Scrum Master earlier this week, and I said, "Listen, here's the deal. This person is making things very hard on the team. They're very upset." As I said, we as the Scrum team are upset as a whole. And here's the saying that you need to remember: people don't leave companies, people leave people. And you really need to consider how you want this team to continue, because I talk to people, and I guess because they kind of hear me speak up, so they know that I'll have their back, and that this is going to happen. This is going to start happening. And what do you really want to come? What are you doing to coach this person to try to tone that mouth down? Because I probably didn't say it that bad, but to that effect, to say, hey, how could you say that better or something? I don't know.
Yeah, here's what I heard. Is that what you meant? Kim, I saw your hand up and
I,
now
I was
it's
just
down.
gonna, you referenced, Tina, that you're thinking about doing a working agreement. I would I would definitely recommend, definitely pursue that. I think I'm doing that myself with my team. Just I do it annually, review it, but create a working agreement that to make sure that everybody's on the same page, make sure they understand the expectations and their responsibilities, their roles. But maybe they don't understand the Scrum framework. Maybe they don't understand that as well. Definitely do a training on 2020 Scrum framework, but also get the team agreements going. Make sure they understand what are the roles, responsibilities from the three roles, and get into the empirical process that we're trying to deploy, right? And go back to the fundamentals. And during that team agreement, you can definitely reference the fundamentals. That's a great start. I mean, because yeah, it's not easy, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it's not easy. So
I
thank
try
you.
to look at the situation where if you have all of these friction pain points coming together at once, you can see it as an opportunity to really leverage your craft, because problems are coming up from the bottom, right? So they're no longer outside. You've reached a critical point where things aren't working. Now you have key stakeholders who are involved, who now you have their attention, right? Because they've got skin in the game and they've got some kind of an axe to grind. You will never have an easier time to get everyone into the same arena, to the same forum, and have what I put on there: crucial conversation as well as radical candor, that somebody else threw out there. I put a link to a book, Tina, called The Art and Science of Facilitation. And Marcia Acker, I really like this book because she says it's called Sailing into the Storm, right? You have a great opportunity to get everyone to kind of coalesce and get all of their pain points and dirty laundry out into the open. And if you as a facilitator, as the practitioner, can be the guide to keep that discussion objective, you can solve a lot of problems in one fell swoop and resync everyone. But you have to have that skill to navigate. People are going to get pissy because they're upset, and that's why it's a problem. So you have to be able to dance like a therapist around people's prickly topics, but you don't want to shut them out and say, "Oh, don't be emotional. This isn't a place to be emotional." Emotions are natural. Let someone get it out so they'll get the steam out of their system, and then they'll be ready to start anew.
Yeah, I grabbed a copy of that and put it over on a little task board for myself. So thank you.
Yeah. Hey, may I do a quick screen share?
Can we stop you?
Yes, you can say, please don't. You're moderating.
By de facto. No, go ahead. I'd love to see.
So this is
Something stopped.
the exercise that we were just working from before the class. And what I wanted to suggest with this, Tina, is that you don't have a single simple or even just a single complex problem. You've got multiple interrelated things here, right, with potentially some deeper rooted problems. So in our facilitation class, we're working through the process of creating designing a process for the facilitation where we consider, you know, a variety of things in trying to make a plan. So I've structured this so we do it with stickies, like we're doing stories on a stories map or any kind of a ranking and prioritizing model. But there's in this model, there's 5 main areas on that left side where you want to have an understanding of where we're sitting now and where we're trying to go, and identify like what are risks or challenges or even assumptions that we're making, and where we identify a problem, a negative thing, like, you know, on human aspects, you can see in ours here, if you can read my screen, lack of safety, evident anger, need to build trust and mutual accountability. I felt like you just pretty much said all those things in the stuff that you're dealing with, and probably more. So these areas, then you can build out a list of the needs that have to be addressed, and then really kind of rank those, because you can't tackle everything at once, but then consider what actions you can take. So there might need to be some one-on-ones. You might need to pull in somebody at a kind of a higher level of oversight over agility that would have the attention and the respect, or at least the obedience for that product owner. Before you guys work on a working agreement, I'd suggest there's work you need to do so that everyone's coming in. I think Richard had pointed it out, kind of with an understanding of, or maybe it was Steve, like the Scrum guide, like what are the roles, and not just what does the book say, you know, what does the Scrum guide say, but what do we as an organization say? How are these things supposed to be working? So that now when we understand, you know, what our lane looks like and the other group's lanes look like, now we can come to that working agreement. And then just the working agreement won't finish the job for you. So now, you know, you potentially need maybe somebody like Steve, someone from another team, facilitating sessions and setting clear outcomes up front and that type of thing. So just the idea of put a little bit of structure to this so that you've thought through the varying aspects, because if you try to just whack-a-mole it, like, oh, well, that's a big issue, let's try to fix that, and you haven't considered, you know, what should come before or what's more important to address, you probably just expel effort and not see progress, and it'll exasperate your issue. So thoughts or questions about kind of tackling it from that approach?
I actually have a meeting with Steve now, because as you were right before you started talking about that, I said, hey, when do you have time? Let's talk, because I think that we definitely need some intervention, or we're going to start, like you were saying, or whoever it was saying, the team's just going to dwindle because they're going to have enough.
I like the bottom right box to make sure that there's a shared understanding of why we're even doing this, because then you get into what Richard was, the books that Richard was talking about, where if you understand if you have a shared understanding of what the goals are, then you can either talk about, here's what we're doing, and does that map to what we want to have happen? Or here's what we are doing, does that support, not help, or actually hurt the outcome we're going to? And I think that gives a little different context. In other words, it's not, I don't think what you're doing is right. It's, we agree we're trying to do this. I see you doing this. That seems to me to be counter to what we're trying to do. Am I reading that right? So it gives you a little better context to have those conversations if everyone has that shared agreement as to why we're doing this adorable Agile stuff.
Right. Shared
Yes.
agreement is key. You co-create that content in terms of the desired outcome. Some will be delivered to the team as something like that the leader or the president or whoever needs, and then we're trying to fashion things in order to achieve that. And Ben, to that point too, as you're doing even an incremental step, you want outcomes from that step. So you want the big picture, and then you want, as we're working on an area, like, well, what is this? What'll this get us? Which one of these needs is this going to address? And what would success look like?
Yeah,
And I
see,
would say, oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I've been taking a lot of these types of things and using it to try to help build up, especially like with that Scrum 101 series. because I told them, you know, one of the things, if this whole thing hinges on trust, then we need to trust each other. So I don't want you guys to answer this out loud, but I want you to go back and I want you to honestly think about it. Do I trust my teammates? And if not,
Yeah.
why? What are the things that I might be doing personally that may be helping to break down that trust? And what can I be doing to help build it back up? So I think they've been thinking about that. And then, like, as we were going through like the product owner and Scrum Master and that sort of stuff, talking about trying to build up empathy with each other. Hey, what are the things that the product owner is going through? What are the things that they have to face every day? And are you aware of that? What's the one thing that you need, product owner, to be from the team to help you be successful, because that's going to help us be successful. And then we did the same thing with my role today, and then we'll do the same thing with the team next week to start to get that bigger picture of their own little worlds and how they're trying to function together to achieve that same common goal.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, well said. I think that this is a very the simplicity of this tool right here, right? This little board, you could shift where on the bottom right, you know, the desired outcomes. So this could be used as an outcome-driven facilitation tool. But it seems like what this might be here initially for Tina is the bottom left, challenges and risks. And as Steve was just saying, to build empathy and to basically use this as a guiding light for conflict resolution. Because until you resolve the conflict, all agreements and all of those made can't be trusted. They're going to be weak points because people, when they came to those agreements, already had a chip on their shoulder. So you want to clear the air, right? So everyone is in a neutral spot, and then you can start to build positive relationships on that. Because if you keep that conflict and you nurture it away, it's only going to fester.
Yeah. So really each of the areas, because the context and purpose kind of sets your, I have an extra T in that. That's interesting. This is the beta version of the class that we're doing. So everything's not polished yet. You guys are inside the sausage making factory. But that's like those two these are almost like the opposite ends of the compass. They make sure that you're in alignment with where you're going. And I would suggest that even to consider these 5 areas, where are the positives? Because those are things that you might be able to use as assets or leverage points in order to build on. So don't just focus on what's wrong or what's needed, but use this also to notice. It's like, well, let's take stock of our assets and let's take stock of our liabilities.
It's really good.
And also, what's good enough? You know, in other words, we try to get our teams to prioritize what to work on and work on small parts of it. And yet somehow we see 5 problems and think we need to solve all of them at the same time. We see tons of different processes or that we can use in our Scrum implementation, and we try to fix them all and maybe pick the one that has the highest return on goodness, and fix that one, and then fix the next one, and then fix the next one, and decide, is this really a problem? Is this my problem because I know this isn't how Scrum is normally done, or is it a big problem because it's causing something? It may be doing something differently isn't causing a problem. So don't sweat it.
And that's actually why the needs and the actions are 2 big long columns, so that you can stack rank your stuff. And then of course there's different things that weigh into that. Some things are predecessors, even though they're maybe not as critically important. They're essential in order to get to the thing that's really important. So you got to put it higher. So yep. Okay. Thanks for letting me share.
And thanks everybody for the input. That's very helpful. I appreciate it.
So we weren't just talking about story points.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of like the cherry on top of the,
Yeah.
yeah.
Somebody have a good 10, 15-minute topic? Scott, you want to step in and prime the pump? 50 minutes in, 40 minutes in?
Yeah, it's going. Sorry for the delay there. It's funny, I left and Tina was the topic, and I come back and Tina's still the topic. So that's nice. Glad you're here, Tina.
Yeah, I finally told somebody I have been missing these partially because of this, trying to work through everything. And I finally said, that's it. I got to go back. I need help. I need to talk to my peers out here and get some help on this.
Yeah, you got your money's worth, I think, for sure. The only things that have been, if it's of any interest, is the things on my mind about, well, one, I think there's definitely a deepening sense of appreciation for facilitation. So it's been fun doing that with Bob and seeing where that applies. But I still think there's this idea, what we're looking for is what's next, because people think that they're agile. So now we're going to go on to something else. And there's been an interesting trend, 2 different meetings in the last week around AI. There's a new book by Jason Little, who I think highly of, the one behind the Lean Change Canvas, but he has a new book out on change, essentially leading change in AI. I forget the exact title of it. I was going through it just yesterday. Which is interesting. And ALJ with Pete Behrens got together this week. And again, it's like, what do we do about AI? How do we leverage that? Is it a threat? Any of us who are in the space of communicating, sharing information, there's definitely a real impact. And then I set up something for Paul Moore next week. I just see too much of AI really does help developers. Or as I was telling him yesterday, like, look, this whole write-up from a company I think highly of that does software development says it's a great co-pilot, but they're talking about, cutting development time by 25%. That's significant, right? So I'm looking to him about not just how's that look for development, and anyone that knows Paul knows he's been around a long time doing this stuff, but worth investigating. Not just between you, me, and the fence post. Not so much that yes, it's helping dev in this way or not. That's not the point. For me and Paul, the point is who makes the purchasing decision to get coaching help? Not the devs. Management. What's management looking to? What's the next thing? How can you save money? Right? It goes back to what Larry was talking about, our previous one. Like, that's who we need to be like communicating value to. So we can get into specifics of how does it help in this way or that. Look, if AI is the thing, AI is part of our conversation so that we can get cycles of your time and try to actually come in there and help. Convincing them that they're not doing Agile right feels like a lost cause in some ways. I don't want to be down. Or like, hey, here's how Jira can help manage your work better. But yes, along the way, we're going to actually help you do it better. And I think that goes back to what Ben says. Like, I'm not even going to necessarily use that word Agile. So that's been a trend lately that I'm paying attention to, digging into. Mike Cohn has the GOAT bot now that, think about the wealth of information Mike Cohn has that it's drawing on, that you trained it on. It's phenomenal. I was running lots of questions by it in the last class, and it's solid. So, or look at SAFe. This is a great example. It kills me. Sorry to bring up SAFe. But if you go to SAFe and look up AI, they've already got like, here's the key 3 things. And they've already got their iconography for it. And if you read through it, again, just between you, don't go telling Dean I said this. It's nothing. There's nothing there. It's fluff. After years of research, and we knew this was coming even before AI knew it was coming. We were on that. And all of a sudden it's like, it's a thing we have determined. Like, okay, fine. But my point is, they're out there in front of it all. Hey, you don't need to go look anywhere else. AI, we got that. In fact, we got really cool icons to have AI on it. Now we don't have anything to really say meaningfully, but they're ahead of it. Now, let's contrast that community to ALJ community of Pete Behrens, and they're phenomenal people. We're just now having the conversations about what is AI, what should we do about it? You know what I'm saying? You can feel like we're in the business, we're in the marketplace. So that's something I'm kind of paying attention to. And it goes back to Paul Moore, and there is not a CSPD class even listed yet. He's been talking about it. We've been talking about it. But how do you show leadership in the technical space? Well, leadership needs to be one part of influencing up. Leadership means, yes, people have the capabilities and skills for what's coming. Yeah, absolutely. But if I don't get buy-in from up, who is going to get those people's attention? McKinsey, BCG, Deloitte. And are they going to legitimately help them? They're just going to like, here's a bunch of PowerPoints, and we hung out for about a year and a half, and you're no better off when we leave. I'm sorry, that sounds negative, but I've been around it a while. So let's get in front of it. I guess that's my takeaway. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on what's happened in the marketplace. What do you think? And then how do you help them without telling them stuff that they don't think that they think they already know, versus stuff that's like, well, it's a trend, but does that make it negative? It's a trend. I don't know. There. How's that, Ben? Does that work for you? I stand open for cross-examination.
I mean, any tool out there is only as valuable as the craftsman who wields it. right?
Yes.
So all AI is just it's a search engine, right? It's not going to be able to do anything for you. You get the same output from AI as you would by opening up a book. You're just going to be able to find the data quicker. It's how can you integrate that information and knowledge and apply it within a workplace to generate
Yes.
value. The value statements, those metrics that define value. Value is one a company that's looking to minimize churn because what they do is soul sucking. That's the value. Can we measure over a period? We've limited year over year in this time frame. Churn has gone down, right?
Yep.
That's value. Another one is, hey, we want to go to market quickly and we want to gen up a bunch of money. Then there you go. It's very simple. Let's measure how quickly the lead time to getting to market and how much revenue it generated. So if you're not talking about value with us in the value driven community, which is what Agile is, then you're fluff. You're McKenzieing it, right? You're accenturing it, which is just talk with a big price tag.
And to your point, Rich, yeah, it's all about that data-driven decision, right? Which is going to bring value to the bottom line, right?
Yep.
And
And
which
looking
at
at
the
that
end
value to measure, to be your guiding, right?
yeah. And at the end of the day, it's going to make you more competitive against your competitors, right? With, delivering faster, speed to market, time to market, value to market, and all that beautiful stuff.
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how can we use these tools that are efficiency and convenience tools to accelerate our delivery of value, to accelerate how quickly we can help our teams adapt to their current environment and to the environment of the marketplace? So I think the real question is what kind of things should we be measuring to show that things like AI are being effective? Or are they just bells and whistles that are complicating a situation?
Absolutely. And if I could add, so yes, and to that, Richard, if I'm going, I'm going to pull back in what Larry was talking about last time. If nothing else, I'm helping my manager make sure that no, AI is on the roadmap. So when he gets pressured, what's going on with AI? It's already on our roadmap, right? You just earn value by making sure that guy's got talking points, and that's it. Does anything really come of it? I don't know. We have to look into it and see, but don't not have an answer right now. The community does not have an answer, and we're looking at Safe, who's telling you they have an answer, even though you pull back the curtain like, hey, nothing there. But on the surface, looks like they got an answer already for you, right? So who do you trust? So
trust the ones that don't promise the world.
Yes.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a consultant by trade, so
yeah. Well, and I would push. So the Safe promise that they got everything covered for you, and I would lobby they do. Safe isn't going to say, oh, by the way, we don't really address this. You'll need to go elsewhere to get that help with Agile and scaling and product development, UX, AI. Doesn't matter. It's on the framework. And I look and say, what's their standing in the marketplace right now? It kills me. It kills me because I agree with you in principle, Richard. I do. I think we should be value oriented, deliver value. And some of that value is as we manage up and influence. Don't worry, we're speaking to that. We got that covered. We know. I remember I might have shared this in class. Remember the biggest lesson I had way back is talking to someone from DirecTV. I think it's VP of engineering. And he's like, what are you going to do? What's the plan? I'm like, we'll figure it out. That's not what he wanted to hear. Does not want to hear. We're going to figure out with his organization, right? Who does he go with? He goes with Safe. Hey, we got it covered. We've got a plan. Got everything, right? So I'm trying to find a balance of being authentic and honest, but also saying deliver value in the marketplace looks like different things at different levels of different people. Am I speaking to each of those so I earn trust and the right to come in and actually help them legitimately versus just hand waving? Ben?
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation when I kind of used the path to agility framework to start with the business outcomes. And I showed them the 9 things that we value and think, let's focus on them. And the founder and CEO said, where's shareholder value or profit? Why isn't that on there? I think predictability is neat. I think market responsiveness is neat, but at the end of the day, I care about things that are going to help the company thrive. So why aren't those on there? He didn't want to hear, we're going to make your employee engagement better. That's important if it helps the company grow.
Because all those things add up to profit.
Yes.
And those things that they want as a reward, right?
Yeah.
The reward isn't the way that you do it. You focus on your process that then gets you the reward.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just adding to Scott's point about what do the leaders really want to hear?
Yes.
Yeah. And if there's 10 things that you say, here's the ingredients that are going to add up to profit, but some of those ingredients are like salt and others are like flour or water, you don't want to put in equal amounts of each one. So they need to understand that you have an understanding of how to order and balance those things. To Scott's point, I can have, hey, here's a really long checklist. So we'll help you check all of the boxes, right? That's what, when I think of the SAFe framework, I think of, look at all of the activity that we can guide, all of the effort, all of the, hey, we're doing this. Look, this is on my status report. But it doesn't specifically tie in to value cleanly. And with a lot of the capabilities that are there, the actual original capability and what it was for and how it should be applied in its purity is what brings value. And the way it had to be simplified in order to not, make the SAFe framework a 5-year mission, you end up losing stuff. So it's kind of not possible. In fact, if you weren't the author and the one that really lived the things that produced that great tool, you might not bring the right essence in. So those are the fears I have, although I try not to be quite as caustically overt about my
I love that
sense.
analogy. I may, if you're okay with it, I may have to steal it. Because for me, it's a perfect picture. I mean, you have all your ingredients, but how much of each is really important.
Proportion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be my guest, Steve.
So, on that
You
one,
can't
Steve,
you can't leave one of those out. Otherwise, you don't have your final thing. And that's why it's important, right? To kind of talk back to Ben there, where it's just like, hey, and it's like, well, these are all critical ingredients to this thing, but you can't just focus on the end result and ignore the ingredient lists. You have to start back there at your fundamentals, get those all in line, and then profit and goodness will come naturally. You don't even have to focus on that. If you focus on your system, the good stuff will come out organically.
Yes.
But that's the path to agility.
Yes.
Paradigm is you take the big rocks and break them down. So you could just as easily say, well, predictability is not important, and just go down to the outcomes that lead to good predictability and just say, if you do those, you'll have good predictability. So why should we talk about predictability? I think if we don't talk about the goal of the company in terms of profit and shareholder value, if that's what they're interested in, and then say these other 9 things add to it, I think we're oversimplifying it. I was mostly reacting to what Scott said about let's listen to what they want to hear. You're seeing more and more. It depends isn't cutting it anymore. Asking powerful questions isn't cutting it anymore. We really need to be active, and we need to be active listeners.
Yeah, and I was trying to apply to what both of you guys said in terms of, like, in order to help them see that you have a path towards that profitability, it's not just that you're going to do all of these things. It's like, which ones are for your organization are going to potentially have the greatest impact, which things are completely barriers to success. They're not necessarily, they don't make up the greatest volume of the work, but if you haven't factored them in, you will fail. So, and even just the plan to get to that plan, and the reality of, we're going to take into account also that you need to be sustaining yourself as we're going through transformation and some of those elements. You can create a clear plan for someone that isn't, detailed and buttoned up and cookie cuttered, right? We can do more than it depends, or we're going to figure that out.
One of the things that makes me wonder is, why is it that some of those big questions and other stuff are not working? What is the driver, behind some of their thought processes? So is it, they've had way too many knockoff, agile products, and it's been saturated in their mind, and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of done. I'm over all that. This is what I'm trying to get to. Is that really the driver that's motivating their approach?
Yeah. That would be some of the context stuff when you try to figure out, okay, what environment am I working in? Yeah. Did they experience touchy-feely agile and they're task-oriented? Did they experience rigid, we're going to learn the agile process and we're going to learn new language and we're focused on the doing as opposed to the value? Did they, was it just, hey, we're going to come in and rebrand everything and we've got some really nice icons and give us $500,000 and voila, you are certified as agile practitioners? So snake oil agile.
There's something that summarizes some of this. I know we're almost out of time, but I was going through the book, The Soul of the New Machine. Anyone heard that?
No,
Apparently it's a classic. The Soul of a New Machine. It's chronicling, it's Pulitzer Prize winner from a while back. It's chronicling the start of the computer industry, starting with, Data General, Digital, IBM, etc. But one quote that really stuck out to me, they make this comment. I was trying to find it to send, 1981. But this person just makes this statement. They said, "The market is your fate." Right? In some form, I was trying to find it because just being transparent with all of you, I've gotten like my third email in a row from a partner, well-known leader in our space. I mean, incredibly impeccable, world-class, saying, "I'm sorry, we're gonna have to lower rates yet again because the market is just so brutal." And that's in the training, like the coaching. I mean, we all can talk about what's happening with coaching. And so my takeaway was like, if the market's dictating your fate, then what you do is what we actually teach in the class. You pivot, like you inspect and adapt, and you figure out what's the value prop that's resonating now, and then
This is the camera.
Jason faced that. So that's partly what we're doing. It's partly why we're doing the facilitation. It's partly why we're pursuing partnership with Atlassian, and partly why we're pursuing government work and other things, right? But I think for us who maybe kind of grew up in this agile space, there's a part where, hey, Paul, what the heck? Hey,
Paul.
By the way, Paul, you probably know this book, The Soul of the New Machine. I'm just going through that. But so part of this is responding, probe, sense, respond about like what's happening now, because I do see that there's a purists and agile are like, no, but this really is it. And then there's not, a few weeks don't go by it, someone's asking me about if I know of any job opportunities, and they're solid people and they're quality people. So what the market's saying is like, no, I think we're good. So what's the value proposition now? I think agile still gets us there, but I'm not going to necessarily pitch it or phrase it that way. But yeah, the book is a fascinating read about both technology, how it happens, and really that convergence of marketplace dynamics and then what we're actually trying to do and what computing brings. But it's been really enjoyable and educational for sure. I'll pass that on. Any last words? Anyone else?
That's pretty magical that we spoke Paul into existence.
I can't believe it. Yeah, I really felt like I was seeing things like Paul joined, but it still says Ben. All right, wonderful stuff. I'll honor the time box, everyone. I'm trying to think of who was in our class that said, "Hey, are you doing the lean coffee?" Ben pinged me on Slack. I'm like, what? Totally, my head's in a different place.
Yeah. I think it was Dino.
That was me, Scott.
Thank you, Dino. I'm like, no, it's next week.
Yeah. Well, and Joyce was in here too. And then I pulled up our grid. So when you came in, if you saw the screen, you're like, wait a minute, am I still in the facilitation class?
So yeah, time work. All right, my friends, great to see everybody. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck, Tina and Steve. Let us know how things go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.